Hello, Missions family. I am excited about our study in the book of James. I thought I would start at the beginning and share with you the reason why I love the book of James. It's very significant to me, and then we're going to show you a video from the Bible Project. It's like a little brief summary of the book of James. I believe that's going to be really awesome. Also, too, I want to make sure that you know that we'll be doing these every single week. And so they will be posted on Thursday, the day after the Bible study. And that way you can be with us, not miss anything, and be a part. My heart during this season is that you know that we're all together. I don't want anybody left behind. There's kind of like a famous saying with the firemen, as you get to know them. During my time as a chaplain, I got to know firemen, police officers, and such. And one of the things I learned is that one of their major things is that we don't leave anybody behind when they're in a fire. Everybody is taken care of. We make sure everybody's out. And in this context, I want to make sure that nobody's left behind. I want everybody in. And if you watch this video and you want your teenagers to watch it because it's so informative, because of which it will be, it's going to be really, really, really good. I would encourage you to do this as a family at home. That's one of the things that we're trying to do as we look at doing unity within our family, within our community, and also within our church. So it's really, really important that we do this together. One of the things that I learned from the book of James, as I mentioned earlier, that book of James is a fundamental book. It brings out the heart of what a Christian leader should be and what a Christian follower of Jesus should be. I really am convinced that as we study the book of James, it's going to be a life-giving experience, because you're going to find out, as I did when I was 21 years old, and my mentor of the youth group, when I became one of the leaders of the youth group, he said this. He said, the book of James, if you want to become a good leader, is a great book to start with. And I thought to myself, what a great book, because we have a church of leaders. I've always believed that. I believe our teenagers have leadership on them, our children. It's so apparent that our church is being prepped and it's being gathered and it's being encouraged to be that in the community. And not only within our own community, but also in the community at large. So without any further ado, I'm going to jump in some things that have been really significant to me. One of the things is that in the book of James, as I grew as a believer, became a book that I would reference often because a lot of my life verses came from this book. Verses like, be quick to listen and slow to speak and slow to anger. Submit to God, resist the devil, and he will flee from you. Another verse that hit me really strong was about the poor, because when I went on the mission field, it became really clear to me that it was amazing when I was hanging around with the people who were poor in the communities, how their faith was so strong. And the Lord says in the book of James, it says this. It says, did not God choose the poor to be rich in faith? And there's one more. This is undefiled religion, to visit the orphan and the widow in their distress, and the fatherless. I'm telling you, this book has some fundamental, important values that we all need to learn and to live. I'm not sure also, too, if you knew that James was Jesus' half-brother. Now, not a lot of people know that. Jude was also Jesus' half-brother, the book of Jude, the really short one right before the book of Revelations. But anyway, let's just get into some common facts about James the man. If you don't know who James the man was, because sometimes you kind of get a little bit confused, because during the disciples, the 12 disciples, there was a James, the brother of John. But this is not the same James. This is James, Jesus' half-brother. Now, one of the things that we found out as I did the study in James was that James in Hebrew is Jacob. And I thought that was pretty significant in light of what our last Sunday's message was about. We're talking about Jacob. But Jesus probably called his brother Jacob, not James. And I thought that was pretty awesome. Also, another thing is that James was considered an apostle. Now some people may think, now, how could James, the brother of Jesus, be an apostle? Because I don't ever heard about James until later on in the Bible, where it talks about the book of Acts. Well, that's true because James and his brothers, Jesus' brothers and sisters, didn't follow Jesus as the Son of God while he was on the earth in ministry. They didn't start following Jesus until he resurrected from the dead and he showed up their doorstep one day, knocked on their door, and they had heard that their brother was killed, but there he was, alive and well in front of them. Jesus literally visited James and his family, and whoever was in the house when Jesus was there, they all got to see him. Obviously, James and Jude took it seriously, and they themselves followed Jesus after that point. And then they followed him so much, though, they followed him into ministry. They were incredible mouthpieces for the gospel and the releasing of some things. James was an incredible diplomat. He was a great counselor. He was a great man of incredible faith, and he was a great teacher. So much so that he became the leader of the Jerusalem church. So we know this by the book of Acts, because they mention him numerous times when they had issues in the church. And James was consistently called upon to help with these issues in the church. He was so good at it, by the way, that Paul the apostle, the one who wrote practically almost the whole New Testament, called James one of the pillars of the church along with Peter and John. And you can find that in 1 Corinthians. And then it talks about how important it was. James was not only that, but he was also very, very gifted with leading people to Jesus, salvations and such. This man, James, was so incredibly amazing that they called him James the Just. You see, James was well respected in the community. The community loved him, except for the religious leaders. And we know why. Because he preached Jesus. And so, anyway, as we go farther on, we find out that James not only was all these things we talked about, but James was the glue that kept people together. He would not only preach to the congregation at the Jerusalem church, but he was also out in the community and connecting with people. He was a great integrator. He was a great networker. He got people together. He made them feel special. Man, being around James was probably like, can you imagine? This is a man who literally saw Jesus grow up. So when he would reference that he knew Jesus and his integrity, he was reminded of all the many stories that he lived with his brother. And Lord, and I can't only imagine what he said. He thought Jesus was on some mind trip or something because he was so this and that. But now it all came together. It all made sense. You see, James became extremely humble. Humility was his middle name. And he understood what that meant. He understood how to reach out to the poor. He understood how to connect families to families. You see, all this brought humility. It released, and he expressed it in humility. Jesus became his everything. Oh, there was one more thing I forgot. James was killed. He was a martyr for the Lord. You see, the religious leaders of the day got together and said, hey, we've got to stop this sect. We've got to stop this Jesus thing. And this brother of Jesus, he's the main leader of the church. If we kill him, they'll all disperse and it'll be all over. How wrong they were. When King Herod Agrippa killed him with the religious leaders' consent. It was the worst thing they could have ever done. Because after that, because of his influence in the city, the people loved him. It just made the sect, the Jesus movement, even more powerful. I believe as you watch this next segment, we're going to pause. We're going to pause the video. We want you to pause it and listen and watch this. There's going to be a link. We're going to put it up on the screen here for you to click onto, and it'll send you to that video. But when you watch it, I want you to watch it. I want you to take notes, because he's going to give you the video is going to give you also a description of what the book of James is all about in the chapters and verses. What it's going to do is going to make you hungry to read the book of James. That's what's going to happen, and you're going to be really blessed. We're going to pause, watch the video, and we'll be right back. We're back. Awesome. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know I did. I was introduced to these videos through the former church that I was at in Franklin, Generations Church, and we used to do these. We did all of these all their videos on Wednesday nights. It took us almost a whole year to do it. It was amazing. It was so good. But I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you took notes. What we're going to do now is we're going to discuss really just briefly just some things for you to do during this as we're continuing on. We want to encourage you to memorize Bible scriptures. Like the first one that we're going to memorize, we like to have it memorized by next Wednesday, is James 1:5a, and it's this. In the Passion Translation, it says this: "And if anyone longs to be wise, ask God for wisdom, and he will give it." I love that because it kind of like goes along with the exact same one we used during the fast in the first chapter of Ephesians. Amazing. But I want you all to journal too. Try to journal. Try to get out a piece of paper. If you don't have a book that you can write in, go buy one of those notebooks at Walmart or something, and just write it out and make it this next 6 weeks as a point to do it. You will grow as you write. When you write something and then you read it, there's something that God releases into our hearts. And I believe in my heart is that it releases more hunger. And so memorize the scripture, journal, and then we'll be together next week. Like I said, this study in the book of James is going to help you become closer, go deeper, and understand Jesus in a way probably that it may seem simplistic at first, but I believe you're going to see the fruit, and it's going to make your heart yearn for more. So enjoy, and I'll see you next week.